person when they speak a different conversational language. Then we explained how the same problem occurs when people speak a different love language. In this session, we began discussing in depth the 5 love languages. You're probably saying, finally, this is what I've been waiting for. And I know, we all want to get into the meat of a subject, but hopefully it has helped to lay the foundation of why we need to understand these 5 love languages. Before we begin our in-depth study of this session's love language, let me list all 5 of them. They are quality time, words of affirmation, gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. Certainly, all of us enjoy all of these expressions of love. However, there is usually a single love language that we speak and that speaks to us the most. In this session, we'll discuss words of affirmation. Much has been written about words of affirmation. The great writer Mark Twain once said, "I can live for 2 months on a good compliment." In the Bible, Solomon wrote, "The tongue has the power over life and death." And an ancient heart weighs a man down, but a kind word cheers him up. Words of affirmation need to be sincere. They should be direct and to the point. It isn't necessary to write a tone just to say, "You're great." Something simple like, "You look great in that outfit," or "Thank you for doing the dishes tonight. I really appreciate the break." The adage, "You will catch more flies with honey than vinegar," is true with the spoken words as well. In the process of learning another's love language, we need to remember that the object of loving acts, is not to get something you want. Rather, it is saying or doing something for the betterment of the one you love. It is for their sake, not yours. However, it is also true that when we or someone else receives words of affirmation, we are far more likely to be motivated to reciprocate. To restate, you do what you do to show love for their sake, but in most cases, you will receive in return. I'm reminded of a play we produced during my senior year of high school. The title of the play is "If a Man Answers." The gist of the play is this: a young couple falls in love, and while courting they do all those things that people in love do for one another and with each other. It was bliss. They decide to get married, and at first all things are even better than before. But too soon the husband, who is a professional photographer, gets more and more caught up in his work, and he spends less and less time at home. Sound familiar? In addition, because he is so busy and tired after a day's work, he is helping less and less at home. The frustrated bride tries everything, but nothing works. She begins to nag him, and that only drives him further away. As time passes, she begins to feel more and more unappreciated, unloved, and resentful. One day she is complaining to her mother about the state of her marriage. Her mother reluctantly gives her daughter a book and tells her that this book saved her marriage. The daughter looks at the title of the book, and she reads, "How to Train Your Puppy." First she laughs, and then she becomes repulsed. She was frustrated with her husband, but she wasn't prepared to treat him like a dog. "I understand, Shoo-Shoo," her mother, who was French, said, and that was her pet name for her daughter. "But hold on to it. You'll come around." The daughter didn't believe she would ever use the book, but she loved her mother, and so she obeyed and took it home, where it sat on the shelf unused. More time passed. The situation with her husband didn't get any better. She decided to read the first chapter. She read the first step. When you ask your husband to come help you, speak to him in a soft, gentle, sing-song voice. Don't bark at him. She tried this, and to her surprise, he responded better than he had been doing. She read the next step. When he comes to you, give him a playful rub behind the ear. That's ludicrous, she thought, but she was desperate. The next time she called him with her soft, gentle call, and he came, she spoke lovingly to him, saying, "Good boy," and rubbed him behind his ear. Surprisingly, this action on her part was received with pleasure. She almost thought she could detect her husband wagging his tail. She continued to work the steps, and her husband continued to respond positively. I don't want to give away the whole movie, but in the end, when the daughter is telling her mother how well the steps worked, she finished with saying how much her husband had changed. To which her mother replied, "Oh, I think it is someone else who changed." The daughter was confused by her mother's words. She could see the change in her husband. What did Mama mean? Then she realized it was she who had changed. It was she who had changed the tone of her voice, the giving of simple affection, and words of praise or affirmation, as per our study. That is a movie where someone gets to write the script, and usually life doesn't work quite as quickly or as well. But words of affirmation can have that great of a response. When the one you're expressing words of affirmation to feel loved and appreciated, they are subconsciously more willing to give back in return. But again, let me repeat, saying words of affirmation to get your way is not love, that is manipulation. One day, the manipulation will be realized and the person will be offended and hurt all the more. Your goal should be to reestablish your loving relationship and to show the other person that they are loved. Just as there are many dialects of a spoken language, so too there are many dialects of love languages. One dialect is encouraging words. The word encourage means to inspire courage. When you express encouraging words about someone's abilities, you help them have courage to begin or proceed in an activity that is part of who they are. You're not enabling yourself to some accomplishment. You're helping them be willing to take that step to achieve something they want to achieve. However, once again, as the one you encouraged is fulfilled and successful, you'll receive credit and appreciation for believing in them. Another dialect of words of affirmation is words of kindness. This includes how we say those words as well, and perhaps more so than what we say, the tone of our voice matters. We have all experienced someone agreeing to do some function, but they say yes with sarcasm or disgust, or in any number of other negative ways. It's not just what we say, but how we say it. One important aspect of words of a kindness is to not dredge up past mistakes or behavior to another. The past is the past. It can't be undone. If the other person has expressed regret for their actions and asked for forgiveness, it is up to us to grant that forgiveness and to not use the past as a weapon the next time you disagree. God doesn't remind you of your past. He says that as far as the east is from the west, so is his memory of your past sins once he has forgiven you. He says in another scripture that he remembers them, your sins, no more. That is the example of forgiveness we have to follow and we need to follow. Forgiveness or unforgiveness, being unforgiving, is holding on to a right that we feel we have to be revenge, to get vengeance, to be proven right. And if you hold on to that attitude, you're not being forgiven and you're not forgiving others. And so it is that as we forgive others, we don't hold it against them anymore. We don't make them continue to pay a debt that they don't have to pay because they've asked for forgiveness and we've forgiven them. We all live in glass houses, and it is wrong to throw stones of past mistakes when we get into a heated argument. I'm sure you've heard the advice to not go to bed angry, and I understand the thought, but I'm not sure I think it's always the best advice. Typically, when we are in an argument with another, our goal becomes to win the argument, not to come to a mutual understanding and not to reconcile. And so we steadfastly refuse to back down even when we know the other person is right. We must defend ourselves and our reputation, and in the process we must tear the other person down. I'll confess that there have been times that my wife and I went to sleep disagreeing with each other. But more than once when I awoke with a fresh mind and out of the battle, a new understanding of her position came to mind. Sometimes I still disagreed, but I could see her position, and with that understanding, I knew her different view was not a personal attack against me, and since the issue was no longer personal, we could talk calmly and come to an understanding and agreement. One must decide what is best to do in each situation. Sometimes you need to talk it out. But if you both of you are feeling attacked and the drive to defend oneself becomes the main reason you're arguing, perhaps sleeping on it, the issue that is the best way to go. After listening to all this and thinking about it and the encouragement you're receiving, the instruction, you may be thinking, this is too hard. I just can't do it. Well, you're right. Learning to speak another love's language is work. And learning how to form your words is difficult, but the result is so much more rewarding. Too many couples have divorced because they couldn't stop defending themselves, even though they knew the other person was right about them or their actions. Years later, they continue to regret the relationship dissolved, and sometimes it resolved because you just could not admit humbly that the other person was right. How we form our thoughts and words is so very important. When the other person finally takes out the trash, instead of saying, it's about time, the flies were going to have to carry it out for you, or you better clean those gutters, they've got trees growing in them and they're going to pull this house down. Instead say, I'm really worried about our gutters. Do you think you might be able to get them cleaned out today? When your child asks for money, instead of saying, we can't afford that, and then go buy what you want to buy, say, that's not how we need to spend our money. The first response says no, but it also says to the child that you as a family cannot afford what it is they are desiring. That may be true, but it's not helpful to develop that attitude in them that they're poor and unable to do things. A lot of times it's just that you don't want to spend money on it because you know it's wasteful, you know they'll just tear it up, or you know it's not really important, it's just a whim. And so it's better to say, we don't need to spend the money on that. That way it teaches them good stewardship. It teaches them how to budget their money. It teaches them how to save for later so that they can get what they want without going into debt or without doing what they need to do. I tried my best while rearing my children to never tell them they were stupid, and I'm pretty sure I succeeded. But I have told them sometimes they did something stupid. That's just a slightly different way to say they made the mistake, but the second statement doesn't demean them or put them down. They're not stupid. They weren't stupid children. But like everybody, especially us men, we can do some stupid things sometimes, and we know we're doing it a lot of times. That doesn't stop us. Rather, when we say you did something stupid, you're saying actually you're smarter than that. Words of affirmation are a powerful tool to build up the other person. It is worth the time and effort to learn how to speak affirmatively. Next week, we're going to talk about quality time. Quality time is so meaningful to some people especially, but really to all of us, that someone will take the time to help, to just spend time with us, to watch a TV show, to go take a walk. And the Dr. Chapman tells a story of a couple that weren't getting along at all, and he gave them a pattern of how to speak words of affirmation to each other. They followed that pattern for 2 months. When he called them to ask how it went, he talked to the husband and says, "Oh, it's working wonderfully. She's doing so much better and so much happier as I've given these words of affirmation." Then she talked to the wife and she said, "Oh, no, it's not working as well as I'd like." And that's when Dr. Chapman says he learned that people have a different love language. Hers was actually quality time. She appreciated the kind words and certainly would rather have them than ugly words spoken unkindly. But what she really wished for was time. Even though he said, "Thank you, hon, for taking care of the house," he still went off to work and spent all day at work and all night doing work at home. And so she felt unappreciated. She felt left out because he never took time for her, even though he said the right words. So that's what we're going to talk about next week, is the importance of quality time. And again, not just our spouse, but that's important to our children. They need us to take time. That is really, isn't it the most valuable commodity in life? We can earn money, we can save money, we can budget our money, but time cannot be replaced. Once it's lost or wasted, it can't be recovered. You can't make more of it. And so it really is important that we cherish time and that we be sure we're spending time with our loved ones. That's what speaks so much to them. It works at work too. It works with our employees. If we'll just take a moment to share a cup of coffee with them instead of always barking orders, always being on their case about work that needs to be done, we take time just to get to know them, to see how the family's doing, how they're doing at work. Are there any problems, any concerns? Listening, giving them time is so important. So next week, and I've probably given away too much, but next week, that's what we'll talk about. So tonight, words of affirmation. And I want to affirm that you're tuning in and watching and you're following this study and trying to learn how to know the love languages. And I look forward to seeing you, or you seeing me, since it's one way, next week as we study quality time. Thank you. This is Pastor Wes Brockway of Campbellsburg Baptist Church, wishing you God's richest blessings.